Dr. David Clayman, what's the main thing you've learned in your lifetime so far?
The most important lesson that I've learned is the one my father gave when he had 2 months left of his life, and he looked at me one day in desperation and said, just remember, live today, don't wait, be grateful.
That was The Main Thing. Timeless wisdom shared by our wise guests here on The Main Thing podcast. It resonated with us, perhaps rather deeply. You spoke up. You said, we want more from these wise thought leaders. We heard you loud and clear, and so we are reconnecting with a few of our most popular guests from seasons 1 and 2. We will revisit those guests and revisit their wisdom, their main thing. What will we find? Some say true north will always be true north. Others say there's nothing permanent except change. Has it remained the primary driving force in their life? Or has something new taken that place of prominence in their heart and mind? Here in this special episode of Wisdom Revisited, we'll find out how each prior guest has applied and perhaps evolved their wisdom. Here we go. Dr. David Clayman, great to be with you today.
Fun to see you in my office.
Yeah. So, Doc, that clip you just heard was from March 3rd, 2020.
Wow.
March 3rd.
Wow. We're almost 2 years on.
Almost 2 years ago. You know, what I remember is that was a special day. It was the day before you were going to be honored at an awards banquet, the West Virginia Healthcare Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I was there. I was proud to be there. Was so happy for you. Just delighted to be able to share a little bit of that moment with you. And it was also the very last thing that I attended before the world shut down.
Shut down.
Yeah. Here in West Virginia, as I recall, the date that everything shut down was March 14th. So that was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
We all became isolates.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
So, Doc, 2 years have gone by. I just wanted to ask you, what's changed in your life since then? What's new other than a pandemic?
I think everything's new because we're starting over again, but realizations.
Okay.
One is vulnerability and mortality. And this has to do with the pandemic. I hate to mention it, but my wife and I were sitting in the bedroom and that first announcement was, and she said, you have all of those. And she was talking about the risk factors.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So I have type 2 diabetes and I've had 2 stents and I'm overweight.
Yeah.
I'm not really overweight, of course. But that was a shock. And I began
What do they call those, comorbidities?
Comorbidities,
Yeah.
yes. Those lovely things that go on that make you vulnerable to everything else in the world. And that was a kind of a shock because it said I couldn't be social, and I'm a social creature.
Yes, you are. We both are.
Oh, gosh. It was really tough shutting down.
Yeah.
But I had to figure out what we were going to do. The wearing the mask never bothered me. My line was, I don't want to die with a tube down my throat.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
And if I have to take a booster every day of my life, I will take it.
Yeah.
I will wear my mask. I will do whatever I can. But the issue is I will do anything I can to protect myself and the people that I love, period.
Yeah.
And the idea that this world is so fragile and that it's so small, yet things become so big. And with the pandemic, I think, too, and this goes back to some of the things that your other guests have talked about, is we have a big responsibility, those of us that have put ourselves in a position where we're the bosses and we're the leaders and we're out there trying to create things. And when we can't get an answer, it's frustrating because all we need is peace. And I don't want to sound Pollyanna-ish, but we have an obligation to try to make the world at peace. That when we look at another person who may be a different ethnic origin than us, a different sexual orientation, what is it going to take for us to find a way to have people stop with this vilification and hate and this politicization and taking away
divisiveness?
Taking away from us, from our friendship, from
right.
all the stuff that's gone wrong. So what have I learned? I've learned that the world is fragile. Our lives are fragile. Our relationships are unbelievably important. And that I've got to live today and not wait and be grateful and find the pennies of life and not wait for the dollar bills.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been literally been collecting pennies again and putting them in a jar.
Dr. Clayman, has your main thing changed, or is your main thing still your main thing?
It is and it will be my main thing.
Awesome. Has it evolved a bit?
It has evolved quite a bit thanks to your main things from everybody else.
Well, let's get into that.
I have a lecture that I do where the first thing is personal philosophy.
Okay.
And if you don't have a personal philosophy upon which to grow and to ground yourself and to know where you are and be a reflection point, you can't go forward.
Totally agree.
And so what happened was I sat back and said, so what's this grounding I have? It's my dad's last wishes that came from something even more important to me earlier.
Yeah.
And I've just grown with that. And I realized if I get lost, I always used to think I had to live it every day. Mm-hmm. So everybody that's out there, when you hear your main thing, you don't have to live it every day. It has to be that place where when you're adrift, that you can take the line on your boat and hook it onto the buoy.
Yeah.
And stabilize.
A touchstone of sorts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like with the football players whack that little thing when they come out of the locker room. It's a reminder. It's not the end of the road. It's the process, which one of your guests has talked about.
That's right.
And it's giving us stability and something to say, wait a minute, I'm lost right now. I'm scared right now. And the main thing in my life is to stabilize myself so I can be here for my family. I can be here for my friends. I can be here for my community. So when I find with the Live Today, Don't Wait, it came a little bit different than it sounds. It's not just looking for the good.
Yeah. When you opened, you mentioned the word vulnerable. I said, how have you changed in your life since March 3rd, 2020? And you said vulnerable, and you went to the physical vulnerabilities. But it sounds like in this past 2 years, you've realized a lot of spiritual and emotional and relational vulnerabilities as well.
Yes, clearly. Priorities have changed on the things, my bucket list or whatever you want to say, but the fundamental anchor of my life still is that concept.
Your main thing is still your main thing.
Yeah, I thought it was going to change.
That's the premise of this Wisdom Revisited that we're doing right here. And I'll just bring the audience in behind the scenes off mic before we got started. You said, I thought my main thing had changed, but gosh, it really hasn't.
Yeah.
It's that touchstone. It's never going to change. It's how you live, who you are, personal philosophy. Yeah.
And it originated 7 years before I found it. And I'm just going to
let's dig into that because you alluded to that earlier. So give us the backstory.
Back in the Cambodian invasion, we were in college. We were protesting in the streets. I was
70s?
doing 1970.
Yeah.
And I was doing kind of post-traumatic things after the guys would be down. I guess I was meant to do this stuff. They were down protesting, and the insurance people thought we were all a bunch of hippies in a blue blazer with an armband. Very funny. But we had a lecture one night, and they said, come with us. And it was given by a guy named Abraham Heschel. He's one of the most famous rabbis ever. And his daughter was going to Trinity College, a nice Episcopalian school, Susanna Heschel. And they dragged me there. I said, okay, I'll sit in the back row. I'm not going to do anything. And out comes this little man, and he starts lecturing us. Talks about love and everything.
Let me stop you. What did you think what were you there to hear? What was he supposed to talk about as far as you knew?
I didn't want him to talk about God, and I thought he was going to be preachy and talk about Jewish stuff.
Right.
And he came out and he talked about the war, and then all of a sudden he just stopped and he said, when we're hurting this bad, the one thing I'm going to ask you to do is celebrate life. Do not miss a moment in time. Mm-hmm. Do not give it up, because if you do, time is the essence of life, and the essence of life is God.
Wow.
And if you waste time or you kill time, what are you doing to your spirit? What are you doing to what holds us together? And I sat there. I cannot tell you the awe that I was in watching him.
Yeah.
And that night I went back to call my daddy.
Yeah.
And he was in St. Louis making lobster, and he did not like to get called out of his meetings. And I called him. He said, what do you want? I said, nothing, Pop. And he's waiting for me to say, I need money.
You're a college kid.
I'm a college kid.
You're calling your dad. Of course you want money, or you're in trouble, or You made a bad grade.
Oh, and all. And I said, I just want to tell you how much I love you. And there was this silence. Yeah. And I think if he was still alive, he'd still tell you. It was like he didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And
you're like tap, tap, tap. Is the connection? We still have, did I lose the connection?
Is this my son? And what it was is the celebration of life, not to let that moment go by, because there were times that I wanted to tell my dad that, and I wouldn't. And the thing I didn't say on the first time I was on, whenever I would leave home, my dad would be in his chair watching golf tournaments on Sunday.
Yeah, I can picture that.
And I kissed him on the forehead every time I'd leave. And the night that he died,
yeah,
when I picked up his message to me, I kissed him goodbye on that forehead.
Yeah.
So I couldn't kiss him in St. Louis. So what I promised him, and I don't know if I said this to you the first time, anybody that meets me has met my dad. Of all the beauty and glory and wonder and joy and silliness, if they meet me, they've met a piece of my dad.
That's awesome.
So I can't change the fundamental thing. My main thing is, and everything expands from there.
Yeah. Doc, you've shared with me that the wisdom from Bobby Herrera, episode 27 of The Main Thing, stood out to you.
It was one of the ones that just almost knocked me off my feet.
His main thing was this: we all share a common desire to make an impact in this world, in this lifetime.
And for every one of us that you've had on the show, we have somehow talked about making things better and giving people stepping stones to do so. And that's what had the impact on me, that we share that common denominator.
Absolutely. And I think there were a few more that you might like to touch on.
The impact that multiple people had upon me makes this a joy, because I'd like to thank them in some way as well. We can't control what happens to us in life, but we can control how we respond. I'm just reading the main things that are part of the 61 shows that you have done, a podcast you've done. And if you take them and put them into one thing, two things happen. One is you realize if you brought us all in the room together, because one of them says, wouldn't we have power if we were all together?
Yeah.
And that I'll bet you, if you would let us all do what you're letting me do today and go down from the beginning about our main things, we would probably overlap about 80%.
I bet we would.
Because all of us who have come to you, who you've been directed to, whether it's through God or whether it's through other things, we don't get to where we are unless we believe in some fundamental things: caring about others, putting others first, learning from others.
Right.
And so, what has it been? I'm trying, man. I'm trying to. I've had to go through some medical tests. I've had to tap into some reservoir of emotions for that. But the biggest thing, I wrote to my elementary school best friend when he turns 74 in last February. He's going to be 75.
Wow.
I've called people. I've written notes. I've started doing handwritten notes, which means it takes me an hour and a half to write 2 paragraphs. If you live with intentionality,
right,
and you bless yourself every moment and you're grateful, it doesn't matter where you live, you change lives. Because every time we have a new interaction, like with a Newt Thomas or a Phil Goodwin, if you remember him here,
sure
and everything else, it changes. We change.
John Wells.
Your buddy.
Yeah.
We change because they've been here. And my people, when I say thank you for letting me take care of you, didn't understand that they taught me something that if I didn't have them inside me, I couldn't be who I am today.
I totally get that. I mean,
that's Newt.
Yeah, it's your father.
My dad.
You say, when you've met me, you've met my father. When folks have met me, they've met Newt Thomas, they've met John Wells Jr.
Mine's Dave Michelle. My major professor, my favorite professor undergraduate, we had our 50th anniversary. We did a podcast where he was one of the speakers, and 2 weeks later he died. He's 10 years older than I am. But I grieved. I love Dave Weiner. But I carry them, and I have a picture. I'm pointing it to you on a bookcase here. He's my major professor in grad school. My hero.
There he is.
Yeah, and every time I do something here with a trainee, I tell them every time I do something, I turn to him and say, "Chief, what do you think?"
Wow.
And so all of this stuff now, I'm looking to say, if I live 1, 5, or 20 years, I'm kind of pushing it at the 20-year mark, I want to live with intentionality.
Right on.
And I want to be able to pick up my pennies. And I want to live today, every day, and be grateful. Sometimes I may have to wait, but I'm going to get back to it. And that's the goal.
Hey, before we wrap and press the red button to stop this thing, what do you see on the horizon for you? What's out there that you're dreaming about and you're navigating toward your teeing up as a goal and aspiration? What's that thing on the horizon for you, Doc?
Don't know yet.
Fair answer.
I recently finished a very long time trying to do what was right. And by doing right, I did good.
Yes.
Got a piece of legislation passed that is a step in the right direction to help people who have been put in the hospital that may need to be out, but also not endanger society.
This was one of those things, and you got it done.
I did it.
Thank you.
We worked real hard.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm not going to quit. I'd rot away in a day and a half if I retire. But
right.
I would like to have a chance to be a man of wisdom. I am going to write a book because of you. It's your fault.
There we go.
And one of the chapters
but when I said there we go, why did I say that? Because that's what I thought your answer would include.
And in it will be a chapter called Prime Values. And in it is all the other things that are my main things. And all my main things have been given to me by other people. I haven't created them on my own.
Yeah. Well, folks who are listening, you're going to have to buy the book.
2 years.
Doc, thank you. I love you. I can't thank you enough.
Back at you.
I'm so glad we revisited your wisdom and had a chance to share our hearts today.
Thank you for the honor, because the list of people you have, I'm humbled. I really am. That's not just saying something. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, 9 minutes is up. That goes by incredibly fast, doesn't it? Time flies when you're hacking wisdom. I hope you're left wanting more. Sync up with us again next time on The Main Thing for 9 more minutes of wisdom.
So Skip is really out of the room, and I'm not a good fundraiser, but I am a patron and I support the show. And I've realized after listening to the 61 shows that I have learned more than I anticipated. I wonder if any of you would think of helping out to defray the costs, because he's doing this, like a lot of us do, out of his pocket. And I want you to kind of just take a couple minutes, and if you're a regular listener, it's like any kind of charitable thing, but it's not charitable. It's to support us so that we can have the impact by creating more podcasts that are like this. It would be nice for you to show us the support. Jump in today. Click on the link. I think it's patreon.com/themainthingpodcast, if I remember, because I've heard it every time Skip puts it on there. And maybe start doing something to support the show with $5 a month or $20 a month or whatever you think, because I think it's going to be worthwhile in this world that we have to come back, create civility, create momentum, believe in our dreams, take care of others, let them take care of us. We need things like The Main Thing, and we need the people that listen to this to be the activists for civility and a return to a good new normal, and to get rid of the pessimism and to create the dream again. There's a group of us that believe that we really should support The Main Thing, because by supporting this main thing, it's supporting our main things.